AITA for reporting my stepbrother's fraudulent business registration after his food truck destroyed my peace and credit? I, 30M, never thought I'd be posting here, but I genuinely need outside perspective because my dad, 54M, is telling me I've destroyed the family over what he calls a simple misunderstanding. Spoiler alert, it wasn't simple, and it wasn't a misunderstanding. Let me start from the beginning because context matters here. I've worked for the United States Postal Service for 8 years now. I started as a mail carrier right out of community college, worked my way up, and now I'm a supervisor at a regional distribution center. It's not glamorous work, but it's stable, has good benefits, and I've built a decent life for myself. More importantly, working in mail services means I understand exactly how important an address is, legally, financially, and personally. This becomes relevant later. My parents divorced when I was 12. Dad remarried Linda, 45F, when I was 16. Linda has a son, Marcus, 27M, from her first marriage. I want to be clear that I tried with Marcus. For years, I genuinely tried to be a good stepbrother. But Marcus has always been difficult. He's the kind of person who believes the world owes him success without any of the work that typically precedes it. He's bounced between jobs, business ventures, and get-rich-quick schemes his entire adult life. Linda has enabled every single one of these failures, and my dad, wanting to keep his wife happy, has gone along with it. 2 years ago, I finally achieved something I've been working toward since I was 22. I bought my own home. It's a manufactured home on a private lot in a semi-rural area about 40 minutes outside the city. Nothing fancy, 3 bedrooms, 2 baths, a nice deck, and most importantly, it's mine. I saved for years, maintained perfect credit, and put down a substantial down payment. The lot is about half an acre, with a gravel driveway and enough space that I don't have to see my neighbors if I don't want to. The location was strategic. Far enough from my dad and Linda that dropping by wasn't convenient, but close enough that I could still attend family events without it being a major production. I thought I'd finally established healthy boundaries. I was wrong. The beginning of the nightmare. About 8 months ago, Marcus started a food truck business. He called it Marcus's Mobile Eats. Creative, I know. Linda was absolutely beside herself with pride, posting about it constantly on Facebook, telling everyone at their church about her entrepreneur son. My dad mentioned it at a family dinner, and I wished Marcus well. Genuinely. I hoped he'd finally found something that would stick. The first sign something was wrong came about 6 months ago. I started receiving business mail at my home address. At first, it was just a few pieces, something from the Secretary of State's office, some business supply catalogs. I assumed it was previous owner mail that hadn't been properly forwarded, even though I'd been at the address for over a year at that point with no issues. Then the volume increased. Within a month, I was receiving 5 to 10 pieces of business mail daily. Invoices from restaurant supply companies. Letters from the health department. Correspondence from the State Tax Commission. All addressed to Marcus's Mobile Eats at MY address. I called Marcus. The conversation went like this. Hey Marcus, I've been getting mail for your food truck at my house. Did you accidentally put down the wrong address somewhere? Oh yeah, I needed a registered business address. Mom said I could use yours since you've got a real house and everything. Food trucks need a commissary address for licensing. I felt my blood pressure spike. Marcus, you can't just use my address without asking me. And I definitely didn't agree to be your commissary location. Dude, relax. It's just mail. I'll come pick it up whenever. That's not the point. You need to change it immediately. This is my home, not a business address. He laughed. Actually laughed. It's not a big deal. Mom already filed the paperwork. He hung up on me. I called my dad, expecting him to understand. After all, he knew how hard I'd worked for my home. His response? Pete, come on. It's just an address. Linda was trying to help Marcus get his business off the ground. You know how hard it is for young people these days. Would it kill you to help your brother out? Stepbrother, I corrected, something I hadn't done in years. And no, Dad. I'm not comfortable with this. He needs to change it. My dad sighed like I was the unreasonable one. I'll talk to Linda, but I think you're overreacting. Update 1. 3 weeks later, the inspections begin. I wish I could say things improved after my conversation with Dad. Instead, they got exponentially worse. 3 weeks after my call with Marcus, I came home from a 12-hour shift to find a notice taped to my front door. It was from the county health department, informing me that they'd attempted to conduct a routine inspection of Marcus's Mobile Eats commissary kitchen and found no one home. The notice stated that a commissary inspection was required for food truck licensing and that failure to allow inspection could result in suspension of the business's food service permit. I stood on my porch, reading that notice 3 times, my hands shaking with a mixture of rage and disbelief. Marcus hadn't just used my address for mail. He had registered my private residence as his food truck's commissary, the location where food trucks are legally required to store food, wash equipment, and maintain health standards. Commissary kitchens have to meet specific health codes. They're subject to inspections. They require permits. My manufactured home on my half-acre lot was now, according to county records, a commercial food preparation facility. I called the health department first thing the next morning. The conversation was illuminating and terrifying. "Sir, according to our records, this address was registered as the commissary location for a mobile food service business 6 months ago," the clerk explained. The business owner signed an affidavit stating they had legal right to use the premises. "I'm the property owner," I said, trying to keep my voice level. "I never authorized this. I've never even seen this affidavit." There was a pause. "That's concerning. You'll need to come in and file a formal dispute. In the meantime, the inspection requirement stands for the business license." I took a half-day off work, burning precious PTO, to visit the health department in person. I brought my property deed, my mortgage documents, and my identification. The woman at the counter was sympathetic but explained that the process to remove my address from the business registration would take time. She also mentioned something that made my stomach drop. "There's also been a complaint filed," she said, checking her computer. "A customer claimed they got food poisoning from Marcus's Mobile Eats and tracked the commissary address. They're demanding an inspection of the food preparation area. Someone who ate Marcus's food got sick, and now they thought my home was where that food was prepared. When I got home that evening, there was a code enforcement vehicle parked on my street. An officer was taking photographs of my property. "Can I help you?" I asked, still in my postal uniform. "Are you the property owner?" "Yes. We've received a complaint about unpermitted commercial activity at this residence. Operating a food business commissary in a residential zone requires a conditional use permit. Do you have one?" I explained, again, that I had no idea my address was being used. That I hadn't authorized anything. The officer was professional but firm. The complaint was on file, and I'd need to attend a code enforcement hearing to resolve the matter. That night, I called Marcus again. This time, Linda answered his phone. "Pete, honey, Marcus is busy with the truck tonight. What do you need?" "Linda, I need you and Marcus to understand something. I just got a citation from code enforcement. The health department is trying to inspect my house. Someone got food poisoning and they think my kitchen is responsible. This needs to stop. Today." Linda's tone shifted from sugary to cold in an instant. "You know, Pete, family helps family. Your father and I helped you plenty when you were younger. Would it really be so terrible to help Marcus succeed? He's finally doing something with his life." "By committing fraud?" I asked. "By forging documents that say he has the right to use my property? By potentially ruining my ability to live in my own home?" "Don't be dramatic. It's just paperwork." I hung up before I said something I couldn't take back. Update 2. 1 month later, the situation escalates. The next few weeks were a masterclass in bureaucratic nightmares, all of which I had to navigate while working full-time. First, the health inspector showed up again, this time when I was home. Her name was Patricia, and she was actually the first person in this whole mess who treated me with genuine understanding. I explained the situation, showed her my documentation, and she conducted a brief inspection of my kitchen just to close the loop on her end. "Your kitchen is fine," she said. "Obviously residential, obviously not a commissary. But I have to tell you, this business has had multiple complaints. Food temperature issues, improper storage, customer illnesses. The owner needs to provide a legitimate commissary address or the license will be revoked." "Good," I said, and I meant it. But Marcus didn't get a legitimate commissary. Instead, he got creative. I started hearing from neighbors that a food truck had been seen parked on my property. At first, I thought they were mistaken. I worked long hours and was rarely home during the day. Then my neighbor, Mrs. Chen, showed me photographs she'd taken. There was Marcus's food truck, a beat-up white trailer with Marcus's Mobile Eats painted on the side, parked in my driveway. In the photos, Marcus was serving customers from my property. My property. Mrs. Chen also mentioned that Marcus had told customers this was the home base, and that he owned the lot. I felt something cold settle in my chest. This wasn't just carelessness anymore. This was deliberate. Marcus was actively telling people my property was his. He was using my address, my driveway, my home to run his failing business without my permission. That evening, I drove home early and found the truck there. Marcus was cleaning equipment on my front lawn, using my garden hose. "What the hell are you doing?" I asked, getting out of my car. Marcus looked up like I was the intruder. "Oh, hey Pete. Just finishing up for the day. Good spot here, got better foot traffic from a hiking trail nearby than my usual downtown spot. Get off my property." "No. Dude, chill. I'm almost done." "Marcus, I'm not asking. I'm telling you. Get your truck off my property, stop using my address, and don't come back." He rolled his eyes. "Mom said you'd be like this. You've always been jealous of me, you know that? Jealous that I'm actually trying to build something while you just deliver mail." "I supervise a distribution center," I corrected, though I don't know why I bothered. "And I own my home. I've never asked anyone for anything. But that's not the point. The point is you're trespassing. You're committing fraud. And if you don't leave right now, I'm calling the police." Marcus laughed, but there was an edge to it. "You wouldn't." I pulled out my phone and dialed 911. He left. But the look he gave me as he drove away told me this wasn't over. Update 3. 6 weeks later, I build my case. After the confrontation, I made a decision. I was done being reactive. It was time to be strategic. Working for the Postal Service taught me many things, but the most valuable lesson was this: documentation is everything. Every piece of mail, every form, every signature, it all matters. It all creates a paper trail. And paper trails can either save you or bury you. I started building my case. First, I requested copies of all documentation Marcus had submitted for his business registration. Under state law, these records are public. What I found was damning. Marcus had signed an affidavit stating he owned or had legal right to use my address for commercial purposes. This was perjury. He had forged a permission letter, supposedly for me, authorizing use of my property as a commissary. The signature wasn't even close to mine. It was fraud. The business registration listed him as operating from my address, which was zoned residential. This meant either I was violating zoning laws, or he had lied on official documents. Since I wasn't operating a business, option 2 was correct. I gathered all of this into a folder. Then I added copies of every piece of business mail I'd received at my address, the health department inspection notices, the code enforcement citation photographs Mrs. Chen had taken of the food truck on my property, records of my calls to Marcus and my dad, including dates and times, my property deed showing sole ownership, statements from neighbors confirming they'd seen the truck and heard Marcus claim ownership. I consulted with a lawyer, a family friend who worked in real estate, who confirmed what I suspected: Marcus had committed multiple crimes and civil violations. Filing false documents with the state. Fraud. Potentially identity theft, using my name without permission. Trespass. Unauthorized commercial use of private property. "You have an extremely strong case," she said. "If you want to pursue this, you have options. You can report the fraudulent business registration to the Secretary of State. You can file a police report for the forged documents. You can sue Marcus for damages, the citations, the time you've lost, the impact on your property value. You could even go after him for any impact to your credit or reputation." I thanked her and went home to think. Here's the thing: I didn't want to destroy Marcus. I didn't even want revenge. I wanted my life back. I wanted my home to be my home again, not a health inspection site, not a code enforcement problem, not a food truck commissary. But Marcus and Linda had made it clear they weren't going to stop voluntarily. They saw my property as theirs to use, my objections as selfishness, my boundaries as obstacles. So I made my decision. Update 4. The reports and the fallout. I filed everything on a Tuesday, my day off. First, I went to the Secretary of State's office and filed a formal complaint about fraudulent business registration. I provided all documentation proving I hadn't authorized the use of my address and that Marcus had submitted forged documents. Then I went to the police station and filed a report for forgery and identity theft. The detective who took my report actually recognized Marcus's name. Apparently, this wasn't his first brush with complaint-worthy behavior. I also filed a formal complaint with the county clerk about the false commissary registration and contacted my homeowner's insurance to document everything in case of future liability issues. Finally, I wrote a letter, certified mail, because old habits die hard, to Marcus and Linda, formally demanding that Marcus cease all use of my address, remove my property from any and all business registrations within 14 days, and refrain from entering my property for any reason. I noted that failure to comply would result in civil action. The response came faster than I expected. 3 days later, my phone rang. It was my dad. "What the hell did you do?" He was angrier than I'd ever heard him. "I reported Marcus for fraud," I said calmly. "Because he committed fraud. The Secretary of State has revoked his business license. The health department is investigating. There's a detective calling the house asking questions. You've ruined him." "He ruined himself, Dad. He forged documents. He used my property without permission. He's been lying to officials for 6 months. I didn't make him do any of that. He's family, Pete. He's Linda's son who's treated me like a resource to exploit. That's not family. Family asks permission. Family respects boundaries. Family doesn't forge your name on legal documents." There was a long silence. When Dad spoke again, his voice was tight. "Linda is devastated. She's saying she'll never forgive you. She's talking about your mother, saying she raised you to be cold." I felt that one. My mom passed away when I was 10, 2 years before the divorce, actually. She'd been sick for a long time. Invoking her was a low blow, and Dad knew it. "I'm sorry Linda is upset," I said carefully. "But I'm not sorry for protecting my home. I worked too hard for it to watch it get destroyed by someone else's poor decisions. If Linda had asked me, actually asked, maybe we could have found a solution. But nobody asked. They just took." My dad hung up without saying goodbye. The fallout continued over the following weeks. Marcus's business license was formally revoked due to fraudulent registration. He received a citation for operating a food business from an unpermitted location. The health department investigation found multiple violations based on customer complaints, improper food storage, temperature control issues, lack of proper hand-washing facilities in the truck. He was looking at fines totaling several $1,000s. The detective decided not to pursue criminal charges for the forgery, citing it as a family matter, but warned Marcus that any further incidents would be treated much more seriously. I received a formal letter from the county clearing my address of any commercial designations. The code enforcement citation was dismissed once I proved I hadn't authorized any commercial activity. My record remained clean. But the family damage was severe. Linda refused to speak to me. She blocked me on social media, not that I used it much, and made it clear through my dad that I was no longer welcome at family gatherings. She was telling everyone at their church that I had betrayed Marcus and destroyed his dreams. Marcus himself sent me one text: "You'll regret this." I saved it, added it to my file, just in case. My dad tried to play mediator for a while, but it was clear his loyalty was with his wife. Our conversations became shorter, less frequent. He stopped inviting me to dinners, stopped calling on Sundays. Part of me grieved that loss. But another part, a bigger part, felt relief. Update 5. 3 months later, the aftermath and reflection. It's been 3 months since I filed those reports. The dust has mostly settled, and I've had time to reflect on everything that happened. Marcus's food truck is done. Not just because of the license revocation, but because word got around. Between the health complaints, the fraudulent registration, and the general chaos, his reputation was ruined. Last I heard through the family grapevine, he's moved back in with Linda and my dad and is working at a chain restaurant. I hope he learns something from all of this. I doubt he will, but I hope. My relationship with my dad is complicated. We talk occasionally. Birthdays. Holidays. But the warmth is gone. He sees me as the one who broke up the family. I see him as someone who chose his wife's comfort over his son's well-being. Maybe we're both right. Maybe we're both wrong. Mrs. Chen brought me cookies last week. She said she was proud of me for standing up for myself. It shouldn't have meant as much as it did, but it did. I've also made some changes to protect myself going forward. I installed security cameras on my property. I set up a P.O. box for any future sensitive mail. I registered with the Postal Service's address verification system, so I'll be notified if anyone tries to file a change of address using my home. But the biggest change has been internal. For years, I operated under the belief that family meant tolerating mistreatment. That keeping the peace was more important than maintaining boundaries. That being the bigger person meant being a doormat. I don't believe that anymore. Family should be people who respect you, who ask before they take, who care about your well-being, not just what you can provide. By that definition, Marcus was never family. Linda never treated me like family. And my dad, as much as I love him, chose to prioritize his wife's wishes over basic respect for his son. That's a hard truth to accept. But accepting it has been liberating. Where I stand now. Last week, I sat on my deck with a beer, watching the sun set over the tree line. The mail that day had been blissfully normal: a bill, a magazine, a postcard from a friend. No business correspondence. No inspection notices. No code enforcement letters. Just my mail at my address, for my life. I thought about all the hours I'd spent dealing with the mess Marcus created. The PTO I'd burned. The stress that had affected my sleep, my work, my health. The relationships that had been damaged or destroyed. Was it worth it? Yes. Absolutely yes. Not because I won. This isn't about winning. It's because I refused to let someone use me as a resource. I refused to accept that my hard work, my property, my future could be appropriated by someone who didn't ask, didn't care, and didn't take responsibility. I know some people will read this and think I should have just let it go. That family is more important than property or principle. That I destroyed relationships over mail. But here's what those people don't understand. It was never about the mail. It was about respect. It was about being seen as a person, not a tool. It was about the right to say no, and have that no be honored. My home is my sanctuary now. It's quiet. It's peaceful. It's mine. And nobody, not Marcus, not Linda, not even my dad, gets to take that away from me. TLDR. My stepbrother used my home address to fraudulently register his food truck business without my permission. This led to health department inspections at my home, code enforcement citations, business mail flooding my mailbox, and my stepbrother actually serving customers from my driveway while telling them he owned the property. After failed attempts to resolve it through family, I reported the fraudulent registration to authorities. His business license was revoked, he's facing fines, and my dad/stepmom blame me for destroying the family. I regret the broken relationships but don't regret protecting my home. Edit. Thank you everyone for the support. A lot of people are asking if I have advice for others in similar situations. My main advice: document everything from day one. Keep records. Save messages. Get copies of any official documents with your address or name. And don't let anyone tell you that being family means accepting mistreatment. Boundaries aren't betrayal, they're self-preservation.